What we're going to do, guys, is we're going to talk about the 12 tips of Christmas. But before we get into that, I want to say hello to our resident Wize mentors, Ed and Jamie. So, Jamie, how are you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Brenton. I don't think I've ever seen so many people in one Zoom session. So this is a record for me. So, hello, everyone.
Now, if all the little blank spaces
I was on the camera. I was just listening.
If everyone's willing in game to turn their cameras on, we'd love to see your faces. So, Ed, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm pretty good, Brenton. And your background's quite appropriate, you being in Ireland. I should have put a picture of a beach here in Sydney.
I know it's getting to the colder end of the year over here, but it's nice. All right, great to see some familiar faces. Hey, Carmen. Hey, Paul. Hey, Thomas. Hey, Michael. BYO crew, love your backgrounds. Great to see you all. So, guys, as you know, we're always doing lots in the background of Wize to, we're still a very, very young company, and you can tell by our faces that we're a very young company.
I'll take that one.
We're constantly developing our intellectual property and our secret sauce in the background. And one of the things we've been focused on this year is really understanding what the sort of core strategies are that we focus on and that we talk about when it comes to building a firm, building a business that runs without you. And we've tried to distill it down into a nice, simple model. And this, for anyone who's interested in these sort of graphic models, is called a genius model. If you go and Google genius model, there's some great videos on it, and it could be really helpful for your own business. I found this a really useful exercise for us. But the genius model basically identifies the core promise, or the core thing that we're trying to help you guys with, which is right at the center of that graph, and that's freedom. So a business that runs without you is the goal, but the ultimate goal is to give the business owners, the firm owners, and the teams freedom to be able to live the life they want to live and have more choices, and just basically not have a business that's completely reliant on you. And then what does that mean? That means more time, more money, more meaning. But how we're going to actually implement that. And when we look at the Wize way of doing things, we boil it down into 3 areas. Design, which is all about building the foundations and building out the blueprint for a business that runs without the owners. Recruit, which is about implementing and installing and leading a high-performing team. And then scale. Once we've got the design and the recruit functions right, how can we then transition from growth into scale and really see the business take off in a leverage way, in a way that's not completely reliant on everyone doing all the heavy lifting? So what we thought would be a really cool way to end the year is to share a tip. So we're going to hit Ed up, and I'm going to put him on the spot. So we've got 9 core areas here. So we're going to get 9 core tips from Ed in this session. And then what I'd like to do is, for each of the areas, the 3 remaining tips to round out our 12 tips of Christmas, we're going to get from you guys. So I want to hear a design tip from someone, a recruit tips from someone, and a scale tip from someone. So I'm putting you all on notice now that when we get to those points, I'll be looking for some stories or from some highlights from your year. So without any further ado, we're going to start in the design area. And we're going to talk about or look at one specific tip, Ed, one piece of mentoring advice that you can give on the design function of building or developing out the growth blueprint. So really building the business on a blueprint designed in a way that allows the owners to remove themselves from being in the business to working more on the business. What is your one piece of advice that you want everyone to take away from this session today on this topic?
Thanks, Brenton. I guess I've talked about this in the past, but when you want to run a business and a good business, you need obviously good people. Then you need good systems so that everybody knows what they're supposed to do. And then you've got to provide good leadership because you can have the best people in the world, you can have the best systems in the world, but if you don't provide good leadership, it can all go pear-shaped. So that's just a quick bit of advice on that area.
Okay, so in terms of the blueprint itself, when we talk about the Wize withdrawal journey, so helping business owners remove themselves from each of the 7 divisions in the Wize 7-division org chart, and we've got a lot of team members on here today, which are helping the owners build this business and implement the Wize way of doing things. So what do you have in terms of advice for getting everyone on the same page in terms of working in their flow in those divisions and helping the owners remove themselves from working in the business so they can work more on the business?
Yeah, so when you build a business, you need various different skills. And often owners say to me, I wish I could find someone just like me. And you don't want someone just like you. You want someone that complements you. And it's not like school where if you're good at maths and you're bad at English, you get someone to tutor you on English to get your English up. At work, you stay away from the things you're not good at. So you hire somebody that does the things that you're not so good at, so it complements you. So what you end up is 1 + 1 is 5. Now, in the withdrawal journey, there's 7 divisions, as you all know, and all these 7 divisions require skills to do the tasks that are required in those 7 divisions. And the journey that the owner should be going through is to withdraw themselves from each of those divisions. And the first division they should withdraw themselves from is the administration. So to hire somebody to do the administration, so you need to find someone that's really good in administration because everybody benefits from a really good administration person. And then you continue to withdraw yourself from, the production, doing the work. Then you withdraw yourself from the KPIs, monitoring, running the KPIs, the reporting, the financial reports of the firm itself, and then you withdraw from the sales function, and until you eventually just sitting in the board of directors, keeping an eye on the whole business.
Okay, so Jamie, in terms of your tip on this topic, what's one thing you'd like to share with everyone in terms of helping get everyone on the same page with the growth blueprint? So how to grow a firm in the right way, business by design rather than by default, rather than just letting it happen.
Yeah, thanks, Brenton. I think my tip for that one today is having your meetings. So the meeting rhythm and routine for me in growing Sky was always about just the meetings. So the daily huddles that the teams have, and then the weekly managers meetings, and then at a higher level, your board meetings. The reason is it's so important is it gets everyone on the same page, and you can never over communicate. You're better to over communicate than under communicate. And if you over communicate, just gets everyone on the same page and everyone heading in the same direction. But if you don't have your meetings, if you don't have that daily huddle, you don't have that weekly meeting, or even the monthly office meeting and your board meetings, it'll just cause chaos and everyone will be going everywhere. There'll be no, logical priorities. So for me, the biggest tip on that one is in terms of designing a business is make sure that you have the meetings, the meeting rhythm and the routine, a bit like, the sun goes down every night, the sun comes up every day. It's just like follow the seasons. It's just that cyclical meetings. But I can guarantee if you drop the meetings, if you don't have your meetings, if you don't have your weekly managers meetings and so forth, then the wheels will fall off. So yeah, my biggest tip on designing a business and keeping everyone on the same page is that glue is the meetings to have, and having those strict agendas on the meetings and someone leading the meetings. So that's good leadership.
Awesome. Perfect. Guys, as we go along, because there is 12 tips to get through, we're going to fly through them, but I'd love to hear some questions along the way as well. So yeah, you've got two options now that we can see you all. You can either put your hand up and wave it around and we'll unmute you. Or if you want to put a question in the chat box, you should all see that chat box there. We can ask that as well. So that is tip number one, develop your growth blueprint. Now let's look at tip number two in the design function, which is turning on your performance dashboard. So I should probably reiterate that none of the ground we're covering today is, new stuff. This is all getting back to the fundamentals of how to build a business that runs without you. So let's talk about, Ed, the importance of installing and turning on dashboards in the firm to be able to keep your finger on the pulse of the health and the start to the business.
Yeah, thanks, Brenton. There's an old saying, to be able to manage it, you've got to measure it. If you don't measure things, you won't be able to manage it. And we've come up with 5 key performance indicators, which we call the Fab 5. And it's in the Wize Hub. So everybody should have the Wize Hub. And if you haven't got your Wize Hub, then just send an email through and we'll send it to you. But in the Wize Hub, everything that you do culminates in these 5 KPIs. And if you have these KPIs in front of you, you'll feel in control without needing to be controlling, because you don't want to be controlling of the people that you work with. You want to empower them so that they know exactly what they have to do and they get on to do it, and it culminates in the scoreboard, if you like. So it's a bit like playing a game, and you end up having a scoreboard. And the 5 KPIs that we focus on is the fees, so your actual fees each month and year to date. So we measure your cumulative fees to date, because one month could be out and then you make it up in the following month. So over a 3-month period gives you a better indicator of how the business is traveling, rather than just 1 month on its own. And we measure that against last year's month and year to date, and also against the budget that we've put forward as what we're trying to achieve for the next year. So we measure that and we make sure that we're on track. And then the second KPI is your EBITDA, your profits, and your cost of goods sold, because the biggest expense item on your profit and loss statement is your cost of goods sold. And if you lose control of your cost of goods sold, your profits will disappear. And if your profits will disappear, there's a domino effect. You can't pay your wages. You can't run the business if your profits aren't there. So it's in everybody's interest to ensure that the goose that lays a golden egg, which is the business that you're working for, is profitable and it's running well. Because if it's not running well, then everybody loses. So that's the second bit, it's your profitability. The third one is your cash. If you don't have cash available, then you can't pay your bills. And often a business can be quite profitable, but if it doesn't have any cash flow, it can still go into liquidation if it can't pay its creditors. So cash is really important, and the cash is either WIP, your work in progress, or your debtors. And if your cash is all locked up in those 2 areas, you won't be able to pay your bill, and you just have to owe someone more than $1,000, and they can apply for liquidation on you. So it's really important that you're on top of your cash flow. You've got the systems in place to make sure that it's not all locked up in WIP and debtors. The fourth one is your fees. So a business needs to be growing. If you're not growing, you're dying. There's only 2 states for a business. And so you want to be growing. So you need to be measuring, the new fees that are coming through, And you also got to be measuring the fees that you're losing, because you might be, if you're only focused on the new fees, you might be growing, you might be thinking that you're growing, but there's a leakage there, and it's leaking out the back, and it's the net that's most important. And it also helps you work out what capacity you need. So if you're netting a net growth of 100 grand a year, that tells you you've got to, hire another person, and make sure that your resources are, up, keeping up with your growth. And the very last KPI is your net promoter score. You've got to make sure your clients are happy. And research shows that clients or customers expect businesses to make mistakes. But what defines us is not the mistakes we make, but how we address those mistakes and how we respond to those mistakes. And the research shows that if you respond really, really quickly, not only do you keep that client, but you turn that client into an advocate, a promoter of your business. They'll go out and refer people to you. And it's extremely expensive to try and get a new client. It's much cheaper and easier to retain an existing client. So it's important that we're on top of how they're feeling, and if they were aggrieved for some reason, that we address their grievances as quickly as possible. And the only way that you'll know that is to run surveys and measure NPS, the Net Promoter Scores, on how they're feeling. And often when I talk to firms, they say things like, I don't want to hear anything negative. But you've got to change your attitude, because you can't see that as a negative. You've got to see that as an opportunity to improve your business. And it's funny, we have different, in Japan, they've got a culture of looking forward to complaints. Because whereas in Australia, we hate complaints, we hide away from them. But in Japan, they've got this thing called Kaizen, which is continuous improvement. And the only way you can continuously improve is to get feedback from your clients. And the last one is, of course, you make sure your staff are happy, and that their issues are addressed, and you're not just paying attention to the clients, but you're also paying attention to your staff, because your staff is one of the biggest assets in your organization. And you've just got to make sure that those 5 KPIs are trending in an upward direction, and then everything is under control, and you'll feel in control without needing to be controlling of anybody.
Perfect. Jamie, just to add to that, you've been spending the last 10 years or so getting to a point where you're automating those Fab 5, as we call it, as much as possible. We've gone to a certain extent with the Wize Hub, with the SharePoint dashboard, but anything to add in terms of, maintaining those dashboards, making sure that they're kind of kept up to date, or anything around that piece?
Yeah, the biggest piece of advice I could give is make it a priority. If you don't make measuring your firm a priority, then you're not going to know how it's going. So, while you've got the tools there, and if you don't use it, then that's no one else's fault but your own. So you've got to make it a priority to measure those 5 things, Brenton, and to put in systems, to put in tools in place so that you can actually measure it for the better of the firm, for the better of the team. Because, if you don't have a handle on each of those 5 KPIs, you're going to be deficient in one area. Really those 5 KPIs came out of years and years of experience with myself looking at what to measure in the firm, and also with Ed building and running Chan and Naylor. So those 5 KPIs are critical, and I think don't miss any one of them. So make it a strategic decision and a top priority to actually spend the time and the effort to actually measure each of those KPIs, because if you just push them to the side, then you're really missing the whole point. Because what you can measure, you can manage, and it gamifies your business. And it shows you who's good at what they're doing and who's not so good at what they're doing, so that you can then help them or support them to be better at their job. So
Awesome.
yeah, my advice is make it a top priority if you are a decision maker in your firm, to measure those 5 KPIs, because they won't just happen unless you make it happen.
Perfect. Good advice, I think. The third one to round out the design piece, which is, we're fanatical about installing extraordinary systems, Ed, so extraordinary operating systems. If we were to pinpoint and highlight part of this methodology of installing and building extraordinary systems, one piece of advice for everyone to take away to focus on next year on this topic, what would it be from you, Ed?
Sure, and I'll talk fast. There's hard systems and soft systems. Okay, so hard systems are things like, Xero and MyOb and practice admission and those kind of things. So yeah, they all work pretty well, and it doesn't really matter which one you pick. They all do 80% pretty well. So it's a bit like if you're playing golf, if you buy a better set of golf clubs, it might improve your game a little bit. But what really improves your game a lot is the soft systems, the culture, the processes, the leadership from yourselves, and the culture of no blame. Don't create a blame culture. Focus on solutions. Focus on playing the ball, not the man. The no bypassing policy. Empowering people to work, to be productive, and focus on output, not input. So focus on productivity. So don't focus on politics and political point scoring and blaming and that kind of stuff. Focus on the output. Focus on solution. And if you can get those things right, then you create the soft systems that will propel your business to greater heights.
Perfect. I love the hard system versus soft system, and there needs to be a plan for both of those, doesn't there?
Yeah.
So, Jamie, what's your piece of advice on this topic?
Yeah, quick and easy, Brenton, is to develop standard operating procedures. Develop your videos. That's just critical, and have one central spot that's in an organised manner for all your how-to. So this is how we do it at our firm. And if you just record, use something like Snagit, Camtasia, just record everything that you do, and get all that intellectual property out of here and into your system, which will actually by default become an extraordinary system, because you'll have it all recorded. And when someone starts, you can say, "Oh, just watch these 10 videos, and this is how our business runs in this particular area." So a quick answer is SOPs. Yeah.
SOPs. And just to extend on that, my tip on that is, and I'm late to the party on this, but Loom, LOOM.com is awesome for like screen capture and, either being able to share a link for the screen capture. It's all cloud-based, or you can download it. There's a subscription if you want all the fancy bits to it, but it's probably one of the easiest capturing pieces of software I've used this year. So get on loom.com if you need something to capture stuff on your screen. All right, I want to hear from you guys. So who has got a design win for me? So whether it's you've had a massive shift in the way in which you run your business in terms of business by design rather than it letting run you. If it's around extraordinary systems, if it's around your dashboard, you've got it humming. Who's got a good story for me that we can share before we power on to recruit? Hand up, anyone? I'm going to start picking on people, given that I can see them. Who's got a... Oh, come on, guys, make it easy for me. All right, I'm going to make this easy. Thomas, you're up. Or Carmen, I'll go to you next.
Okay, yeah.
Thomas, you were talking to us about yesterday, the transition and the transformation of your firm over the last 2 years. Give us a quick soundbite of business by design for you guys now.
Number one priority for design, just keep it simple. If it's not simple and intuitive, then, you know, staff aren't going to pick up on it. The clients, they're going to be confused about how they interact with you. So just the short part is just keeping it simple, and that way it will, you know, things will flow much better. And then if it's complicated, when things break, it's hard to fix. It's hard to know where things, you know, where you should be looking. But if it's simple, it takes care of itself.